Welcome to Inner Voice of Knowing podcast. I'm Kaye, a shamanic leadership coach and healer, guiding you through life with a foot in both worlds. When you understand the terrain of the inner landscapes, the mental, emotional, spiritual, and energetic, you will become the leader within your physical life, both personally and professionally. After all, the power of change is in your hands. Let's get this journey started. Welcome back to Inner Voice of Knowing. Here's another really important conversation that we need to have. And this is about power, our personal power, who is powerful and what power really is. And the reason that this has come up, because like always, I have a whole list of topics that I could talk about, but it's always what's been taking place in the last 2 to 3 weeks. And not until I sit down to press record or maybe 15 minutes before that I go, oh my gosh, okay, this is what we need to lean into in the conversation this month. And it is, when it goes live on the Saturday, it is amplified by the full moon. But this message, regardless of when you're listening to it, is important because it's so misunderstood. And here's why. People are perceiving, you can still be spiritual when you feel heartbroken. And notice I'll say the word feel. Most people say you can still be spiritual when you are heartbroken. No, our heart doesn't break. We feel that way. Remember, words are really powerful. Remember the episode of Shaman Speak. You can still be spiritual when. I learned a long time ago. I started working with others when I was 25 and I'm now 60. And I was in such demand, and then people would be shocked by my age. And I took on this persona that I had to hold true to this wisdom, and that if people saw me feeling vulnerable or emotional, in other words, human, that it would take away, it would detract from the wisdom that I carried. In fact, a client said to me the other day that they'd participated in a journey with somebody else, and this particular person had said to them, well, I would never take wisdom. I would never seek help or support or guidance from someone who was 30. And I hate to take this beautiful woman who I've been journeying with for a long time and guiding her and say, you know what? And I'm going to say to you, if someone says that to you, walk away. Or as I said to my client, run a mile. And clearly, I have no problems with someone who's working with me seeking out others. This is what it's about, seeking truth. And it really sparked for me when I looked this beautiful woman in the eyes who's done so much rapid growth and transformation and said, people sought me out when I was 25. People of all ages. Wisdom knows no age. It is timeless. And I want to talk into that, and we grow into our power and we continue to deepen that. But what does that actually mean? The power isn't I'm here and I'm going to forcefully tell you. As we settle more deeply into our power and being powerful, it's because we have been continuing to journey and doing the deepening of bridging the gap between what is perceived of us as being spiritual and what is perceived in us of being physical. And you hear me a lot in many of my personal podcasting talking about this separation, this judgment, this getting rid of. I've learnt from personal experience and from working with many, many, many clients over the years. And the journey to your personal power is the journey inwards. We're all seeking this sort of, life will be perfect when I don't feel angry, when I don't feel upset, when I don't feel triggered, when I don't feel something other than just joy and flow, and then the world and my world will be perfect. Well, I have come to be embodying the most beautiful world the more that I've journeyed inside of myself. And I see this too with those that I guide. And here's why. As you know, if you've been listening to me, and if you haven't, first time off, energy is everything. Yes, it is. Energy is everything. And in the suppression to try to be positive and empowered is this deep desire to suppress as though it's wrong. But it's in the very suppression that we diminish our power. And what is our power? Our power is the remembering of the alignment of the inner voice of knowing, power and potential. Knowing aspect, source, power, soul, potential, the self, that successful self that's calling us. Source overlays the soul overlays that self. Does not contain ego. It is the divinely aligned ego, which then aligns with us in the physical, within the embodiment of the expression of that alignment. And that process and that alignment and that remembering deepens and expands. And it's not you can be spiritual even when. It is you have always been a divine spark of spirit. You are and always have been spiritual, for lack of a better word. It's about bridging that gap between those spiritual elements and expressions, which is in that unseen, which is in that alignment of the overlay of the overlay of the overlay, the Trinity and the embodiment into your physicality. And then the expression and the gift that comes with being human, the emotions. And not the judgment upon it, because the very judgment upon the emotions, which is the reason the soul came in to express through the physical, because the soul doesn't feel broken. The soul doesn't feel anger or frustration or disappointment. The soul is the eternal expression of source, of creation itself, of love and harmony, the harmony between all expressions, the oneness between all connectedness. And any words are going to limit the communication of this, because it's the unseen, yet the felt. And we're here to have the felt into the lived through the human experience. And it's in the suppression and the control, or the attempt to control, that we block that energy, and it becomes dis-ease, it becomes overwhelm, it becomes anxiety, it sinks into a depression, because it is a denial. And in the denial, it is the disconnect or trying to block that current of flow. I just wish the remembrance would be in its simplicity. You have always been a spiritual being. You may not be consciously aware of that, but that doesn't change the truth of it. That doesn't change the truth that you are energy and soul. That doesn't change the truth that source overlays your soul, overlays that aspiring self, that higher self, if you like, that overlays our physical form, that is our inner voice of knowing, power and potential, calling us back through that inner portal to remember. And then that divine experience is in through being a physical being. And that as we remove all the illusions that have become an intrusion of the mismatch of the vibrations of words, of perception, of the truth that we feed back into this loop about our emotions. I guided a room full of women on the weekend through a shamanic full moon journey. And I like to do it the week before because it's the lead into that fullness of that energy and then still the influence on the other side. It's the preparation, it's the anchoring. And here's the thing. We are all so connected. All so deeply connected, not just via soul, not just via being energy and spiritual beings, by the very emotions that we all unconsciously, sometimes consciously, try to suppress. And we as the container can only hold so much suppression before that energy is vibrating so much. It will then break out in an amplified expression. Rage, grief, resentment. But imagine a world where you gave yourself permission to breathe into, to know how to feel and release in a way that didn't harm another, in a way that honoured who you are as a spiritual and physical being. That's accessing your power. And when you're in your power, when you're allowing that, there is no defense. See, when we suppress all these emotions, when we blame others, which is a suppression of our own energy as well, instead of recognizing that the mirror is like the eye that's looking into us, and then the eye is within us is to look outwardly, that the mirror reflects both ways, that it's talking to us. But we've overlaid a different language and a meaning on it all. So we develop energetic stances of protectiveness and you don't know my power. And you don't have the right. I've been there. We're all there. It's in that experience that also more deeply calls us home. So there's no judgment here. But the calling is to go, what if I breathed deeply in? What if I plugged back in? What if I allowed myself to feel? And in that feeling, I allowed myself to hear with all of my senses and my soul, in understanding that terrain and the language of that terrain, what was really calling out. What is really calling out to you? What was really calling out to me? What is really calling out to us? We're so busy trying to discard things and suppress things and create this division and prove our power. But our power isn't, you don't know how powerful I am. Our power isn't trying to prove in a response to somebody else. Our power is in weaving together the energy and the beauty of the feeling beings and the expressive beings that we are physically, and harmonizing that with who we are energetically, soulfully, and spiritually. The two cannot be disconnected in truth. Those false stories and beliefs are calling out. Aspects to be seen and heard, embraced and remembered. There is nothing wrong with what you feel. It's learning to release the current, not to bring judgment to it, which is another form of expression. Imagine this. Imagine if you were demanding that someone doesn't know your power and you don't know who you're dealing with, and you went and stopped and went, hold on a moment. That's not my power. My power is contained within me, and it then comes from the heart. The more that I own and recognize and bring love, compassion, and understanding to, and when it's expressed, it can be expressed so directly. It doesn't need to dance around to protect. There's nothing to protect, but the energy behind it comes from such love. Because through your eyes, from the mirror, that you've looked in and you start looking back out, is coming from, I see you in the other. I hear you in the other. I feel you. You feel the other. I know you because you know yourself. And I love you because you've brought that to yourself. I have done this myself. I have gone through this journey myself. Nearly every woman in the room was feeling like this, and I've heard it in all the work that I've been doing of late, because it's getting amplified. What we don't acknowledge, what we suppress, gets amplified. The body will talk to us, the emotions will talk to us, the reflections will reflect back to us, where we haven't yet brought into an integrative process back into remembering, recalibration, realignment, reintegration. Have you ever said this? And I'm sure you have. When is someone going to take care of me? I've been there. The power question is, where are you not taking care and being there for yourself? And here's the thing. If you're the person that needs to be there for everybody else, and hey, my hand goes up in the air, I've been there. That was a huge one for me. if you're the person that needs to be there for everybody else, here's what might feel like a challenging yet powerful question. Why are you suppressing the other person from their own personal power? Why are you seeing them as lesser than and less capable? Let that one land. Why are you answering the call and expecting someone to be delivering something negative and then surprised when they deliver something positive? And then why are you brushing it off? What gain are you getting from playing smaller than? This is the thing. Your power is calling you back into your presence, into the present moment, beyond all those false stories and beliefs, beyond all those patterns. And everyone and everything is playing a part for you. The person that says to you that I would not come to you because of your age bears the greatest gift for you to come back to your power. When you stand there and you hit an element of rage but you don't know my gifts, you are not in your power, because your power doesn't need to force. It is embodied. It sees the truth of what's going on. It can be direct and honest and truthful, but delivered that way. And we're not supposed to bring judgment to when we recognize these aspects. We're here to recognize that it's in this human reality that we get to be mirrored back into the truth. And it's the power questions and the reflection back that we can go, okay. That's all right. I'm not going to judge myself. And if you judge anger in another, you cannot measure, but they express anger greater than I do. Anger is anger. It's okay to express our grief. And when we give ourselves permission to express grief, we flow through and out the other side. Client said to me this week about, when will the triggers stop? Those darn triggers. And I said, what happens if we stopped looking at those shitty triggers as the greatest gifts directing us back into our remembrance? We can think that we've moved beyond being a victim, that we've moved beyond whatever story we want to feed over it. But it's all a gift. It's all a signpost back into the remembering. It's all a journey of acceptance. It's the illusions of the stories that you and I bring to what we're feeling and what we're experiencing. We don't need to fool ourselves into going, I don't like you, but hey, I send you love and light. Guess what? As you embody, as you recognize the mirror as the I looking into you, giving you that opportunity, that I am calling you in, and then the I am choosing to express that vision back out beyond perception into a greater perspective of truth. That everything is calling us into remembering that innate alignment of soul overlaid, source overlaid, soul overlaid, self overlaying our physicality. It's all calling us home. That power already exists within every one of you. But this is part of the process of going, I am soul and energy first. And getting past the distractions, getting past the judgments we put upon others and therefore we also put upon ourselves. Breathing deeply the breath of source to reconnect us. Learning to witness our own emotions in order to release them through flow, to listen to them. Everything expressing through you is an opportunity to unmask an energy that you have been suppressing that holds part of your authentic power, the very thing you're calling on to emerge, to re-expand, to realign, to recalibrate, to reintegrate, to remember the truth of who you really are. And the more you get to witness yourself, the more you get to witness through non-judgmental eyes to other that is part of your power. Your power can be direct, but it doesn't need to force. It needs to flow. Your power can break open through truth when it comes from your direct source of alignment. I'm not here to disrupt. I've been the disruptor earlier on. What do I mean by that? A lot of people will say, well, I'm here to speak truth, so it's going to disrupt and upset you. Look at your energetic stance, even in that. And that's the invitation to look at that energetic stance. If you feel like you're here to say something that's going to upset others, what's going inside of you that's upsetting yourself? Because the more we sit back into our power by doing this journey, and it's a journey, and you can remember like that, or you can take your time. But remember, you will. Because it's calling you through your very experiences, through your emotions. And if you need guidance through that terrain, reach out. If it's not me, reach out to those that are put on your path, but only those that see you, that don't suppress you, that awaken that deeper eye from within, that enables you to look out and look back in. We call that the mirror. It's also the I am. So I invite you to breathe, to feel, to bring a deeper understanding into the voice that's calling to you, the aspects that are calling to you. And don't feel trapped, because as you break open and you express and you release and you let go of the floodgates, there will be a rush, and the flow will come again. So sometimes when you're saying, but I want to be free, as you're feeling the emotion and the release, but not as the victim just speaking what you haven't spoken for so long, expressing what you haven't expressed for so long because you've been in suppression rather than expression. There's your freedom. There's your restoration. Sometimes the very thing you're asking for or we're asking for, we're in the process in that moment. And when that mirror is reflected back to you, the emotion subsides and the remembering shines through. You might need to listen to this a few times. I've gone a bit deeper and communicated in a slightly different way, but this is what's called for right now. It's about harmony. It's about the authentic expression of who you are in all its expressions, but what you are suppressing is holding you back from being seated in your power, and your power has nothing to prove. It simply is the flow and the expression of source overlaid, soul overlaid, self overlaid, the physicality of who you are. And all roads and all reflections are inviting you back into remembering. Reach out to me if you need to. If you'd like to join my Launching Pad program, because we launch and we relaunch and we relaunch, and it really is that guidance back in and then the setting of the scene externally. You can't set the scene externally and expect it to be different if you haven't changed internally. And there is no greater celebration than when you realized all this time you're needing to simply remember. So much love. Join me on my next episode. And if you love this podcast, please subscribe by clicking on the plus button if you're on Apple, or like and follow on Spotify, rate and review. And please share Inner Voice of Knowing with your friends.